research so much and go so far into science before you have to like really dig into your own art.
Okay, so back up. It challenges us to what?
To get rid of stained glass.
Oh, get rid of stained glass. Okay, yeah. Okay, and then you said something else.
I was just like explaining like you can only research so much before you have to like really dig into your own art.
Okay. So, to self-reflection related to research. Okay. Yeah, and that, the reality is with that is that what oftentimes you will find is that people that are committed to doing science and research don't really think that anything within themselves matters. All that matters is the methodology they use, the data they get, and the conclusions they make. They don't matter. And they probably are not going to say that, but it's an assumption. Weaknesses, or a weakness. Yeah, Savannah?
We kind of talked about how his view is more in like a gray area rather than a black and white answer. He connects them, and so that can get kind of confusing at times.
Okay.
Just because so many variables can play into that.
Living in gray leads to confusion. Okay. Okay. Strength. Yeah.
Define sustainability.
Okay. Okay, good. A weakness. Now, sometimes when you're trying to do this, you might surface either one of these by taking a view of it. Okay. The Johnson, who edited this book, actually invites that when he asks the authors to comment on the other person's viewpoint. But if sometimes we find it really difficult to kind of get into because we gravitate what we like, but then we kind of ignore what we don't like. And that's, even as you guys were reading through the levels of explanation, there were words and phrases he used that you gravitated to that said, this is good stuff, but there's other things here. And so sometimes you have to take another opposing point of view to get an idea of what might be a weakness, okay? So, for example, and you may know it, but how would he criticize this? How would he say that this is what weaknesses this point of view has? You remember? Yeah.
I feel like it doesn't actually address like the specific, like this is great about integration where it's like, oh, biblical truth, scientific truth, but like his complementary truths, I felt like were really specific about that, and this isn't specific.
Yeah. Okay. So in a sense, not specific enough. In the articulation of it. See, the one thing Myers would probably say, the weakness of this, is that there is no clear methodology, which says that that's what he values. All right? I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything like that, but we all come to the table when we evaluate something with certain things we value or we don't. A lot of times when we look at something and say it's a weakness, a lot of times it's not consistent with what we value. And it may or may not be a weakness. The question is how much does this viewpoint or levels of explanation or the other ones we're going to look at, how much does it fit with reality, which is us looking at things fairly dimly because it's us. But that being the case, other things that come to mind. And you can start with where you liked it and then maybe said, maybe we can make the case for whether it's a strength of this viewpoint or not. Or the other way, too. So strength, weakness, we'll open it up to whatever. Yeah.
I think a strength is that it's rooted in monogamy because it forces you to deal with the uniqueness of every single person, regardless of what they think, believe, or act.
Okay.
So I think a weakness could be that, and like when we talked about the approaches, we talked about we frame the understanding of like a client in terms of like Christian understanding of nature, purpose, and calling, which can, I think, be limiting and like maybe and also subjective to what your specific understanding is.
Okay.
Not make you able to enter someone's world if they're outside of it.
Okay. So, I mean, trying to boil all that down, Ashton, it can be subjective in terms of, in its terms. I mean, purpose, calling, significance. You probably can make a case and say, okay, so what are those? And that would probably annoy some people. He goes out of his way to define all these other terms, but then assume certain terms to be understood by everybody. Okay? What else? Other things. Strengths or weaknesses. Yeah.
I think it's lack of a methodology, but the really clear scriptural framework allows more people to use it.
Ah. Okay. Allows more use it. Yeah, and you know the thing is this Will's weakness was limited reach, and you're saying the scriptural framework actually makes it more available to people. It depends on where you're coming from.
Right. So he has all these assumptions based on the scriptural
Right.
framework, but then doesn't provide a methodology which allows you to take the scriptural framework and push it to
Yeah, apply it somehow. Yeah, yeah. What else? Other things. Yes, you were warming up back there, weren't you, Angela?
So I think that another weakness is the fact that it's self-individual faith.
Hmm.
So with that, like a lot of people kind of want to be told what to believe sometimes, or they want more concrete
Yeah.
to grasp.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Next week we will start the Christian psychology, and one of the things I'm going to have you do is, and if you want to warm up now, you can do it. Is tear apart the Sermon on the Mount. Now, yeah, right. The annoying thing about Jesus with that Sermon on the Mount, he describes things. In other words, he describes reality. He doesn't say anything about what we should do. A lot of people think it does, but it doesn't. He was describing reality. And that's in a sense, to some degree, this weakness in our culture is really hard for us because we say, you know, Jesus says, think about these things, and we say, yeah, but what am I supposed to do? And it's like, think on these things. No, give me an action plan. Think on these things. Wait a minute, that's not enough. Well, maybe. I mean, it depends on how we're going to approach life and seeing ourselves and everything else. Yeah, Katie?
I have a question. On the weakness side, where it says, what about flawed interpretation of Scripture?
Yeah.
Is that saying that the integration view has a flawed interpretation, or is that like a possibility that people could do?
No, I think the point was that this viewpoint is so grounded on a clear interpretation of Scripture, and if you have somebody who's going to interpret it in a flawed way, it would lead to greater error. That's what that means. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, Emily?
A strength is that they value the psychotherapy and he created different therapies available, and it's the value in it, but they come at it after people perspective. But they recognize that a lot of them are really great and helpful.
Yeah. Psychotherapy's value. Let me make it modern psychotherapies. Yeah, I mean, time and time again, what you have is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's like we have the capacity to discern what is worth keeping and what isn't. A lot of times, discernment requires more of us than just saying, I don't like it, throw it out. And you all know where that phrase comes from, throwing the baby out with the bathwater? In pioneers' days, when the family took a bath, everybody took a bath, and the baby was the last one. So by the time the baby was in the bathwater, it was already really, really dirty, and they said, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because the water's so dirty. Yeah, the baby goes with it. And that's where the phrase comes from. The thing that will challenge you, and I think it's kind of goes along with this point in this viewpoint, is it values this. It values ambiguity. You're not going to find that in very many viewpoints you're reading, even the ones that are more aligned with where Jones is coming from. You're not going to find that. They still drive for what? Clarity. And Jones is challenging us in this viewpoint to say, maybe it's not clarity we need. Maybe it's something else, like living with mystery, which you'll hear again, really, when we get to the transformational stuff, too. Any other comments, weaknesses, strengths, things that stood out? Now, real quickly, let me ask you one other question. What makes this exercise so difficult? Yes?
We view strengths and weaknesses differently.
Okay.
Like some things I would see as a strength or a weakness, others would not.
Right. And therefore what? So I see it as a strength, you see it as a weakness, therefore what?
I don't know, I think that draws out like more conversation of how you think what we
Okay.
understand.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, and you kind of betray it, I think in a lot of ways the problem or the challenge, maybe not the problem, but the challenge that you guys have as students is whenever somebody asks a question, you go searching for the right answer. And there isn't one. If you view something as a strength, make a case for it being a strength. You can do that. It's not what I think. It's not what I think. I mean, you can regurgitate all this stuff on the exam all you want. It doesn't tell me anything about whether you're really evaluating it or not. Okay? So the one thing, and a lot of you guys know this because you've been in my classes before, I don't want to hear the right answer. I want to hear the real answer. That would really be nice. And you've got the freedom to do that in a class like this. I'm challenging you to do something that's not easy to do, and that is think critically. We don't naturally do that. It's even less that way today because thinking critically is being mean and being, throwing somebody under the bus or being insulting or anything like that. And what you see at the end of each of these chapters are those guys are not being mean to one another. They're not being mean-spirited or overly critical, but they are saying this is where we differ, and differences are good because that's the basis of where relationships are built. Not on similarities, on differences. And that's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be any more than that. Okay? So keep working at it, keep trying, like I said, I'd prefer the real answer rather than the right one. Okay? All right. Bye.